One. Hello, Tom Lebecki here with the latest edition of the New Theory podcast. Before we jump in, I want to thank those that have been loyal to the NBA and Buttman podcast. Shout out to John Panisi, and just shout out to those checking those out. This is a New Theory exclusive. We'll be on the New Theory channel, and I'm with a very special guest. I'm having him on for selfish reasons. I'll get to that in a second. Naeem Boucher, who is like a real estate guru out of Jersey, of course. I'm a Jersey guy. Jersey guy, self-made. Naeem, welcome to the New Theory podcast. How you doing today, buddy?
Doing well, brother, and yourself?
Well, so the reason why I had you on is, aside from your great accomplishments, the Jersey housing market or the real estate market in New Jersey is just absolutely insane these days. And typically when there's craziness, there's opportunity. So that's what I want to get to today. But before we jump in, a little bit about you. As I understand, you're from Patterson originally, and single mother with 4 siblings. Why don't you give a little background and context on your formative years?
So yeah, my grandma, she came to this country with my mom and my aunt and my uncles, and they started from the ground up, and then my mom met my dad, but then that didn't work out. During my childhood, my dad was in jail, but he eventually got out of jail. My mom got married eventually to someone who was my stepdad. He was actually kind of abusive. So then that ended. And then, it was just my mom, raising 5 kids by herself, so growing up, it was a lot of adversity, a lot of struggle. I seen a lot of things. I saw how my mom struggled. We had adversity, but my mom was always a fighter. She worked hard. She went to school. She worked. She did the best that she could. And in Patterson, it's a tough environment. My uncle got shot, and died. And I've always wanted to get out of that circumstance. I just always wanted the best, because I just always wanted more for myself.
So how did you my other podcast is with the reformed organized crime member, and we kind of deduced that a lot of times it's from broken homes, right? No father around, belonging, that kind of stuff. But you kind of flied straight, and we'll get into your legitimate successes. How did you avoid the street life?
So it's funny, my mom, I got into soccer. And so growing up in an urban area like that, I used to get made fun of for playing soccer, but I was fast. My mom, they got me into soccer, and I stuck with it. And so I was always playing soccer, and the team I was on, we were actually very good. So we had success. So I would travel here and there, and I was the kid that played soccer growing up. My friends used to make fun of me, but I stuck with it, and I went to my high school for soccer, which was one of the best high schools in the country. Then I went to my college for soccer, and then after graduating college, and I got my first full-time serious job as a soccer coach. So my mom definitely made it a point to invest into me by making sure I stayed going to soccer and make sure I went to the school I had to go to. And, so I give her all the credit for making sure she invested that into me, and my other siblings, they kind of felt as though they I don't want to say got the backseat, but my mom really, because I was the oldest son, so what that comes with, especially coming, from that kind of environment. So she wanted to make sure I was, I guess, far away from that. So soccer, man. So definitely being an athlete kept me away from any of that.
That's amazing. And so, you played soccer, high school, college, and then what got you into real estate? Because you're killing it. What got you into real estate?
So after I graduated college and I started making some money, and then, money is I was making an honest salary. But what happened was I started wasting my money on nonsense, right? Like Jordan, sneakers. I was about to give me a car. I had credit card bills, and I was just doing a little bit this, a little bit of that. But I was living at my mom's. She had an apartment, and then she actually had to downsize because she ended up, I think, losing her job or something like that in New York, or something happened. I don't know. And I had to then get an apartment. So now I was living paycheck to paycheck, and things were tight. And I was like, yo, what the hell? Like, why am I in this situation?
Yeah.
And then I wasn't reading them. I came across a podcast by Jim Rohn, personal development.
Oh,
And he
yeah.
mentioned, and he mentioned like, you don't read, you don't do this, you don't like how are you going to change your life if you're not willing to pick up a book, Rich Dad Poor Dad and Rich Man in Babylon. And then I caught on to that. So then I bought the book, Rich Dad Poor Dad was my favorite book. And then I learned the difference between the
My favorite book of all time.
Changed my life.
Wow.
Changed my life.
So you sought out knowledge, but here's what's more important, because I had a friend of mine, he turned me on to Robert Kiyosaki. I actually opened my other business because of that, and 14 years later, it's killing it. And saved my life financially, really did. Went through some tough times. But my other friend who was into Robert Kiyosaki, he bought like the board game, and he did all this stuff, and a great guy and everything, and he ended up okay, but he didn't apply the principles. You apply the principles. You were working as a coach, I think in 16, and doing real estate on the side. But 19, you hung up the cleats and you went full time. You know, that's scary. I'm sorry, giving up a salary to go to where there's no salary.
Yeah.
What gave you the confidence, and how did you make that transition?
Well, what it was like once I learned the basics, right?
Yeah.
So I got to stop wasting my money. So
Yeah.
I was very like, I'm an extremist, right? So I sold everything. I went to go live in my grandma's attic, and I was driving the hoop, right?
Good for
so
you.
I went on defense. That was my defense, right? I'm living where I didn't want to live. I'm not spending no money. People going on vacations. I'm not doing any of that. So I'm saving the money.
Yeah.
And then I was working as a substitute teacher, making $100 a day from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock. Then after that, I was going to go coach. And then I was working at a sneaker store on the weekends, right? I was just doing whatever I can to then increase my income, right? And then all the money that I was making, I paid off all the debts, and I saved up, and I bought my first house. I emptied out my bank account, $6,000, right? And then I did the same exact thing for my second house. But it took me 2 years, right? Like to save, and I'm working very hard. And then my lender, he told me, Naeem, you're right. It's very hard. It was hard for me to qualify for the mortgages because I was barely making any money. He told me, Naeem, learn to be a realtor. You can make 6 figures as a realtor. You can make, some good money. Use
that money for your DTI to get your loans. Yeah.
Exactly, to buy more property. So then that's when I said, you know what? I'm going to quit. So I quit. I had cash flow from the 2 properties that I had already, right? Which is good. I was bringing in, decent money. So I was able to jump, but I didn't want to rely on that. So now I'm fearful. I got to succeed. Yeah. I got to go out. So I just overcommitted. I changed my name to Mr. Real Estate. When I would go out anywhere, I would tell people I'm in real estate, and I just had to become who I wanted to be, right? And just overcommit. And then I absorbed information. I flew to Miami to 10X Growth Con just to learn how to sell.
Grant Cardone guy. He was on the podcast.
Yeah.
Got him and Jared were both on.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So I sought out people that were successful.
So the 10X Growth Con, who jumped out? Any speakers? Like, was it like Brad Leah, or who were some of the speakers, or who were some of the people that jumped out at you that really resonated?
Albert Preciado, Grant Cardone, obviously, Steve Harvey. And there was another guy, I can't remember his name. The guy's so cool. He's like kind of like a hipster. His wife owns like some kind of like swimwear, or I don't even remember the name. I gotta remember. But
more importantly, what was the message?
The message was his message was just about like life, and like just taking control of your life. And if you want to get something done, right, you got to just focus on that. I remember one thing he said something about imagine trees, right, in a forest, and you want to chop down this tree. And I believe it was like one person who goes and, he's hitting every tree, he's in every tree or whatever. And he's going to take forever to knock the tree down. But then there's one person who spends time sharpening the axe, sharpening the tools. And then that person will be more successful at knocking
Yeah,
down the
that
tree.
was I think it was Abe Lincoln. He said if I'm given 8 hours to cut down a tree, I'm gonna spend 7 hours sharpening my saw. So that principle, along with the best way to predict your future is create it. So I categorically agree, and I like that you saw mentorship. I like that you saw knowledge, but more importantly, applied it. Okay, now I'm gonna be a little selfish. I'm gonna tap into your wisdom, right? And we're just gonna use the Jersey market because that's what we know, but I think it's applicable to other areas in the country. So I want to go by three buckets, right? First, let's go through the buyer. Way out of range prices, interest rates are low or in your favor, but you're putting a bid on a house and there's like 30 bids. What should be your buying strategy right now if you're renting or selling your home? What should be your buying strategy in this crazy market? What's
You
your
got to know your budget. You got to know your budget. You got to work with. We got to work with a strong team, all right? Because in a market like this, listing agents want to do business with buyer agents that have experience, and it's just a fact, right? Like they won't work with someone who is going to get the job done, right?
Yeah.
So make sure you work with the team that gets the job done. Knowing your buying power. So I say to my clients, look, don't focus so much on the price of what you're going to offer. Focus mainly on the monthly mortgage. Okay, what do you want?
What you can afford.
What do you not want your monthly mortgage to exceed? And now you know what's the most you're willing to offer.
Good point. So okay, so you know your budget. Really, really interview your buying agents, right? So like, don't just pick somebody, to work with. The other thing is, I always like, I don't trap sounds the right word, but what happens is you go in Zillow, right? And Zillow is like kind of the intermediary. And then you're like, oh, hey, I want to check out that house. So you fill it out, and then you look at that house with that realtor, and then kind of ethically, you're bound to that buying realtor. What do you do in that situation? Let's just say, sake of argument, you say, hey, listen, I'm going to look at this house for you, Naeem, but I just found you through Zillow, and you seem great and everything, but I don't want to commit, or if I buy another house tomorrow, like how do you articulate that? I'm not saying you shouldn't give that person a chance. They paid Zillow, and they're probably an excellent real estate agent. But what do you do there?
Well, what do the agent or the buyer?
No, the buyer. So I'll give an example. I bought a house. Long story, but at that time, I was very happy with the person I represented, right? Like meaning, like I put in the thing through Zillow, met her. She was great. She showed us the house. We wound up sticking with her and buying the house, right? But then there was like other people calling me, no one's looking for a house, and they were on the buy side, like, hey, do you need a house? I might have something for you, this or that, blah, blah. And I was in a little bit of ethical dilemma where like I already kind of hooked up with her, so I didn't want to be disingenuous. But with this market being so crazy, there's so much going on. So what I'm saying is, if I use a Zillow and I get shown a house by somebody who is a seller, they're on our side. They're on the buy side, right? It's not their listing. It's not their listing. What I'm getting at.
Yeah.
And what do I do? Do I like interview them? Do I articulate to them? Do I be how do you do
The
it?
best part about Zillow is that you can click on an agent's profile and see, what's their rating. So you can do your due diligence. Like you can know who you're working with.
Yeah, good point.
All right. That's what I would do. Like my Zillow profile, I have 5 stars. I have over 60 reviews. All right. So anyone is able to see what kind of business that I'm running and what kind of agent I am.
I didn't think of that. I did not think of that. I didn't it's like a Yelp of okay. So that's the buy side. So your recommendation is on the buy side. Make sure you fit within your monthly budget. Make sure your DTI, all that stuff is there for your mortgage, and don't be afraid. I'm going to get too far ahead, but I'm guessing you're probably you're not afraid to walk away from a deal. I'm guessing, correct? If it's not within your budget. Okay, good. If you stretch your budget, you're in a bad place. Okay. Now a seller, right? So I bought a house, literally I closed on it in February of 2020. Boom, COVID hits, right? It was scary. Now it's worth, I think, 15% more of what I bought it for. I'm not looking to move. I have a family. I'm not looking to move, but like I'm sitting there, I'm like, at what point is it worth it for me to sell and then rent and then kind of hang out for a while till things get normal again and then buy even something bigger or better or get better value? Because if I'm renting and I'm sitting on cash, I could jump on a cash deal or that kind of stuff. So my question to you there is, what do you do if you're a seller? Like, should you sell and then maybe rent? Should you wait? Like, I know that's timing, but what's your recommendation to a seller who doesn't need to sell but wants to take advantage of the market? What's your advice there?
They don't need to sell, but they want to take advantage of the market. It all depends on their plans. You know what I mean? Like, because there's so many different variables, right? Like maybe eventually they want to relocate to another state. Maybe they want to reinvest, right? I mean, the market is phenomenal, right? So definitely, if you're thinking about it, that means that you don't plan on staying there so long, right? So consider it, and see if you get the number that you want. I mean, you can rent, and sit on that money, which would be very good, and maybe they'll relocate, But I think that it has to be a very thought out process.
Yeah.
The reason why is because I don't really think that the market is going to like tank. To be honest with you, it makes.
What time frame do you think it's torrid right now? It's super hot. 18 months, 2 years. How I can't stay this hot? I can't. How long do you think time frame is going to be? It's going to be strong.
The only way I see something happen is once the banks release that what is it, the forbearance thing that's going on, maybe then inventory will hit, but then again inflation is starting to be a factor. All right, so if that happens, well, rates are then going to go up. All right, so then maybe that will cause it to drop.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of different. I mean, I'm waiting to see what's going to happen, but I don't see it tanking. Honestly, the reason why is because it'll stabilize. The reason why is because inflation, right? Inflation is real, and there's so much money that is out there now, right? From the people that sold, investors sitting on cash, and if the market was to tank, shoot, people, just be so many buyers that are gonna, right, like want these properties. I mean, so it all depends. It all depends. I'm very.
It might self-correct, but it'll stay kind of high. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Last one before we go. What to do if you're an investor? What type of rent rolls you're looking for? Obviously, you're acquiring at a higher price. So, like, should you be flexible, saying, "Shit, the market's high, so my rent roll may only be 8% versus my normal 12"? Like, give us an investor standpoint.
So, from an investor standpoint, right, you want to know your numbers, right? Like, what's your minimum cash on cash return that you're looking for? For me, I'm being very honest. When I first started out, I just wanted to cash flow at least $1,000 a month. All right. So knowing your numbers, right? So whether you're an FHA buyer or you're a conventional buyer, after the down payment, what's your all-in mortgage going to be with taxes, principal, insurance? So that's your fixed price. Okay. Now knowing the market rents, right? Or if the property is already performing, what are the current rents? So if your mortgage is going to be, let's say, $3,000 all in, and then you're looking at a 3-unit property, it's bringing in $1,500, that's $4,500 gross income. Your net is then $1,500. So that property is going to cash flow you $1,500. And then if you want to calculate, the cash flow cash return on that, you just calculate how much money you got into the deal.
But aren't those harder to get with a hotter market because you're buying them for more, so your mortgage may be higher because you had to spend more money on it because of higher market.
Yeah, but rates are still low, relatively low, so deals can still make sense.
Got it. So you want to see, so you're more of and there's no wrong answer. You're more of a positive cash flow guy, which I like. It comes from the book. My only challenge with that is it's a little. The book is like you put a little bit down and you can have positive cash flow. The only challenge are the little you put down, the less of a cash flow you have. The more you put down, you get a lot more cash flow because you have less principal, less interest.
Very true.
But then it ties up capital. Where do you land on that? Kind of in the middle? Like where do you land on that?
It all depends. It all depends. Like, because I've helped clients do both. I literally helped a client get into a multifamily property and they came out their pocket with $0.
Wow.
$0. Yeah. So the the return on that is infinite. And I've helped clients who put down, more, and obviously they're going to cash flow more, but they got more money tied into the deal. It all depends on the buyer, right? And what they're capable of doing, right? Like I service everyone. I try and help everyone. So for clients who were similar to me, who don't come from money, who don't have that option, who don't have that luxury, you got to get in how you fit in, right? So if that's all you can put down, all right, let's figure out ways. You can get a gift, right? You can do FHA on either 3 unit or 4 unit, live in one of the properties, right? And maybe try and get a seller's concession. It's going to be hard, but that's something to do, right? Because if you don't get in, as the prices continue to go up, the financial wealth gap just increases. Now with the buyer who has the capital and they're able to, you know what I mean? So it all depends. It all depends on the buyer.
I know I gave you some like tough questions because it's not one size fits all, but you know your stuff. I knew you knew your stuff, but you actually gave me a little bit of insight, which I consider myself knowledgeable, but you dropped some really great knowledge on me today. Naeem, how can we find you, buddy?
I'm big on Instagram. My Instagram is Naeem Boucher. So it's my full name, Naeem Boucher. And I'm active on there. I have my website and profile in my bio. So if anyone ever needs to contact me, Instagram is definitely the best way.
Love it. I'm very focused. You didn't sit there and give three different things. You're like, here's my IG, everything's there. I love it. Point, simple. We're gonna see more of this guy. We're gonna have you back on. Today was meant to be kind of selfish. I want to learn a bit about the real estate market. You're the man to go to in New Jersey. And I am Boucher. Thank you for being on the New Theory Podcast, buddy.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.